Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here, and as promised, I am reviewing You've Got Mail. This is the remake-ish of The Shop Around the Corner, and I was really interested in seeing what they did to update this movie and what they did to make it better. And it's funny because although I did hate this movie, I fucking hated this movie. It is really funny though because they did fix both of the criticisms that I have with the original. So like it's like they fixed the two criticisms I had, and then everything else in the movie they made worse. They made just much worse. Like the two criticisms they like totally like they fixed them, but then like everything else though, it's a disaster. This movie, oh. So first off, I should say this movie is also, it should be a really good movie because this is my birthday movie. This is the movie that was number one at the box office on December 19th, 1998, because it came out on December 18th, 1998. And, it should be really, really good, right? Well, no, it's not. And it sucks, too, because apparently the only other movies you could see in theaters on that day were Ants, the Bug's Life ripoff, and then A Bug's Life and The Prince of Egypt. Like, wow, what a great selection of movies to watch. Like, not. And I'm curious, too. I really think it would be fun for Safi and I to see, like, every movie that was number one at the box office for our whole lives so far, and then, like, ranking them. And you could call it, like, birthday movies, ranked. I bet that she'd love that, right? Because then it would reveal how old she is. Maybe for her it could just be top 10 or something. I don't know. But yeah, I hated this movie. I was not into this movie. It is one of the worst movies ever in terms of romantic comedies, in terms of Tom Hanks movies. I'm not really a fan of Meg Ryan. Ugh. And this movie, ugh. 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 God, this movie's terrible. Ugh. Like, as soon as I put this movie on last night, I knew I was in for some shit. Because this is one of those movies where it's just filled with songs to the point of where it's like the songs are trying to overcompensate for the bad story. And so, like, it starts right off the bat, there's this obnoxious music that comes on, and it's like that you're in for a shit treat that just came out fresh. This movie is terrible in comparison to the original. Like, the original movie is, in my opinion, one of the best movies of all time. And they really ruined it. Like, they really ruined that story, and they took all the wrong messages from it. They took all the wrong, like, lessons from it, too. Like, all the lessons, the moral lessons, like, don't judge a book by its cover and such. All of those are not in this movie. They're gone. There's no lessons in this movie at all. Because the lesson that you would take from this movie if you were seriously studying it is, if a guy destroys your business, screw it. He could be the love of your life. Like, that's weird to say the least. It's very, very weird. It feels like a bizarre roleplay scenario. Like, oh no, my business is in trouble. Don't worry, ma'am. I am gonna put you out of business, and then I'm gonna put you in the bed. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like some long, like, role-play scenario that some weirdo came up with, and I've only begun to tear this movie apart. I mean, this movie, it just sucks because it has this cast, probably one of the best casts you ever could have gotten in the 90s, besides Meg Ryan. You got Dave Chappelle. But what the problem with Dave Chappelle and the problem with all the actors that they get in this fucking movie is that they're wasted. They wasted Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle acts like a white person in this movie. Like and what I mean by that is he acts fake and phony, and he's not acting like himself. He's acting like just this bland, like just guy. And it's like, this is not the Dave Chappelle that I know. This is not the badass, hilarious, great comedian that I know. This is like some Stepford version of him, like the Stepford Chappelle guy. Like, it's just terrible what they did with him. You got Greg Kinnear, who's in fucking Mystery Men. Ugh! What they do with him in this movie is just awful and embarrassingly bad. And then you have Dabney Coleman, the master of comedy in the 80s in fucking 9 to 5, Tootsie. I mean, this guy, he knows how to do comedy. He's one of the best comedians. Clifford. He was an amazing, amazing comedic actor. One of the best comedic actors of all time. And what they do with him in this movie, they waste him. They don't do jack shit with this guy in this movie. He's just there. Like, what a complete joke this movie is. Steve Zahn, one of the best comedic actors of all time. Fucking Saving Silverman. Fucking, even serious movies like Rescue Dawn. The Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. Like, this guy is incredible. He is a master at comedy. What did they do with him in this movie? Nothing. They have a couple little jokes with him that are like really weak jokes, like really lame jokes. Like, I think at one point he asks Tom Hanks if he's going to come back, and it's just really awkward or whatever. And then at one point they say that, like, Meg Ryan thought he was the Unabomber at one point for some reason. Like, very bizarre jokes, like very weird jokes in this movie. There's a lot of dated jokes in this movie too, like referencing the Unabomber. I mean, what person in 2023 is gonna go at that? Like, what person is gonna think that that's hilarious? I mean, come on. And just the title alone, You've Got Mail. Nobody knows what that means except for, like all the people above whatever age. Like, I knew what it meant, but I don't think that a lot of the general audience is going to know what that means. And in general, besides wasting the amazing cast that they got, let's get into the plot, because this plot is terrible. So the plot is, you have Tom Hanks, who's now he's just, to me, when I think of Tom Hanks now, all I can think of is Isaac Cappy. That's all I think about. But, let's go back and pretend like, none of that ever came out. And let's just pretend like this is the quote-unquote great Tom Hanks. He is this douchebag son of a... not son of a bitch, but son of Dabney Coleman. And they are in this book company together. It's this, like, big corporation. It's kind of like Barnes and Noble, and they sell cheap books, and they let people drink coffee and read the books in this huge superstore. And then on the other side, you got Meg Ryan, and I'm not a fan of her at all. I don't find her attractive. I don't find her likable. I just don't like her at all. She's like nails on a chalkboard to me. Like, I really, and we'll get into it too, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff to get into with her character. And she owns this, like, little, they call it a boutique bookstore, where you can go in there and it's like you're getting a hug. It's like a, ooh, it's like a warm, like inviting place. Ooh, yeah. And you can read, and you can read children's books and stuff. Ooh, and the superstores, they don't have children's books yet. So that's like kind of like the difference between them. And so her store is in danger of going out of business. And her store is called, wait for this, guys, you want to know how clever this is? Her store is called The Shop Around the Corner. Wow. How clever. I can't clap because I'm holding my phone in one hand, but I'm slapping my thigh, which just sounded very wrong and inappropriate, but, wow, that's very clever. Very, very clever, calling the store The Shop Around the Corner. Oh my god. Oh, wow. Oh, that's so clever. Oh, all the clever little puns and jokes in this movie that there are. Wow. And at the same time, they are corresponding with each other through email. And, they seem to like each other through their bad emails. And let's talk about this, too. In the original movie, the letters that they wrote were sweet, romantic, interesting to listen to. These emails are nails on a chalkboard, irritating and just terrible, and are just like the worst emails I've ever heard. Like, nobody talks like this. Like, even in the 90s, people didn't talk like this, right? Like, did people really talk like this when they emailed each other? I don't think so. I've emailed people before. In fact, there was this girl, and I was in an email ship with her, and we didn't email like this at all. We did some very kinky role-playing games, and I won't get into that, but and let's just say it didn't sound anything like these bizarre emails that Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan sent to each other. I mean, these emails, they're like emails that like your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents would have sent to each other if they just discovered email. They're not emails that like normal people would send to each other. So, yeah. And both of them also are in relationships. Got Tom Hanks, he's with Parker Posey. Personally, I don't really know much about her. She's kind of pretty, I guess, but she's not really. She's kind of like, not really my thing at all. Well, in fact, let's look at her picture. Yeah, she's okay, I guess. I mean, she's been in better movies. It seems like she was in Coneheads. That movie was amazing. She was in Scream 3. That wasn't very good, though. Oh, yeah, I think I remember her in Scream 3. Ew. Never mind. So he's with her, and then Meg Ryan is with Greg Kinnear. And so that's another big issue that I have with this movie. One of the biggest issues is that they really overcomplicated this movie with lots of, like, subplots and lots of, like, new characters that we didn't need. Like, Tom Hanks has, like, this aunt, and she's, like, 8 years old, and then he has a brother who's, like, 4 years old or something, or there's something really weird with that, and their characters were kind of meaningless. And then there's, like, this whole scene where, like, the little girl is singing, like, an entire song, and just lots of scenes like that this entire movie that I just didn't feel were necessary to this plot. And that, after you watch the original movie, which the original was very bare bones, because they just told that story. And they told it very well. This movie is like, okay, let's take that story, fuck it up, and then add a bunch of, like, padding on the outside to make it like this giant mess. To add all this stuff that we don't need. It's overly long, too, by the way. Like, that's one of the things by, like, overcomplicating it with all this extra stuff. This movie's 2 hours long. And by the end of this movie, I was ready to commit, like... Okay, I will use a very dated quote to say what I was ready to do after watching this movie at the end. I was ready to go postal. Okay, like, see there, I just made a dated joke. Suck on that, fucking Nora Ephron and your sister, I think. Is that who wrote this movie? Because I know that she wrote this movie. Who else wrote it? It says Delia. I don't know if that's your sister or not, but yeah, this movie's terrible. And let's get into some other terrible stuff in this terrible movie, because I'm not a fan of this movie at all. In fact, there was a part of this movie where I just got so sick and tired of this awful movie that I just started doing other things in the background. Like, I put on YouTube videos, I twiddled my thumbs, I did other things that I can't say on... Oh, I'm just kidding. But I was just so bored watching this trash. And I was at the point where I was like Tom Hanks in Castaway, where I was like looking at my water bottle and like talking to my water bottle as if my water bottle was a person, and just saying like, water bottle, when is this movie gonna end? I hate this movie. This is terrible. It keeps going on. It won't end. Meg Ryan is terrible. Tom Hanks is terrible. I fucking hate this movie. Please end. And it just kept going and going and going. And just everything from the original they misunderstood. Everything from the original they just twisted around in a not clever way. Like, I was really looking forward to this movie because I thought, you know what? It could be good. Like, I wasn't closed-minded to seeing, like, an update of this Shop Around the Corner classic masterpiece movie, but it was just terrible. So another reason why this movie is bad, and now here's where we get into the nitty-gritty. This movie was very similar to Barbie. You know, Barbie was a hateful anti-men movie. This movie was not a hateful movie. I will say that. You know, You've Got Mail is not an anti-men movie. But one of the biggest issues with this movie is an issue that I think that a lot of romantic comedies started to have around this time period. I feel like, you know, The Shop Around the Corner, that was at a time where men loved romantic comedies. Men would go to the theaters happily to see romantic comedies, and they'd laugh, and it was like the movies were made for everybody. But this movie, these types of movies like You've Got Mail, they feel like they're not made for everybody. They feel like they're made for like a niche audience of women who will appreciate the jokes in this movie and appreciate like the cuteness and the quirkiness of the characters. It feels like this movie is not made for men and women. It's just made for like certain types of women. And I feel like this movie and other movies like this, they are what's responsible for the way that romantic comedies are today. Because nowadays, when you think of romantic comedy, you think women and you think movies that aren't for men. You think these are movies that they're cutesy, they're stupid, they're quirky, they're not serious, they're not interesting. You think romantic comedies equals bad. The Shop Around the Corner was not like that at all. Both men and women could enjoy that movie, and it didn't feel like it was made for a niche audience of people, even though it took place in Hungary. I mean, it was about a fucking Hungarian department store. Like, I mean, come on, like, does that sound niche? Yes, it does, but somehow it's not. It's not niche at all. It feels like romantic comedies, they need to go back to the way they were in the 40s and the 50s, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen enough. But if The Portrait of Jenny was not a comedy, but it was a romantic movie that was very good, that was also around the 40s. So I do feel like that romantic comedies, they need to go backwards because they took a huge step in the wrong direction. Not to say that movies like this are bad to have, but they're only going to be appreciated by a niche of people. In the same way that horror movies from A24 are only going to be appreciated by a niche of people. You know, A24, they make quote-unquote good horror movies, but a lot of them are really pretentious, artsy, dull, depressing, similar, formulaic, and there's pretty much a very limited crowd for those types of movies. It's the same thing for these movies, and this movie did a lot of damage to romantic comedies. There's very few romantic comedies. Like, for this year, let's see. How many did I watch and like? Let's go. 2023 movies. Here we go. Nope. None. Barbie could have been a romantic comedy, but they were too busy hating men, so they couldn't have that, of course. But there has been no romantic comedy that I have seen all year in 2023. That is the state of romantic comedies. What do you have now? You have Hallmark movies. Hallmark movies are lower than romantic comedies because they are made for people who don't expect quality, they just expect consistency. It would be the same thing as, like, if you're in a prison and you're fed gruel, and you're like, ooh, I really like gruel because it's something to eat, and so you're like, ooh, give me more gruel. You've Got Mail is not gruel, by the way, but it is pretty fucking bad. Now let's get into other stuff in this bad movie. My review sounds pretty funny today. Like, let's just get into other stuff now. Let's just get into other stuff in this bad movie. It's pretty weird. So, they obviously both have to get out of their relationships, and there's some crappy stuff that happens with that where, again, I was not paying attention at all because I was thinking, what's the point? I don't care about this crap. And then Tom Hanks ends up putting her out of business. He ends up putting this little bookshop owner out of business, which usually, whenever they make that kind of story nowadays, it always ends up where the big store goes out of business, and then the guy from the big store, like, changes his heart or whatever. Like, it never ends up where the big business destroys the little business. So I thought that was also very bizarre that they let that happen in this movie. I mean, what a piece of trash. And by the end, Tom Hanks ends up becoming friends with her, and it's really cringeworthy because it's not at all like how it's supposed to be in the story. In fact, remember how I talked about the scene where Jimmy Stewart is at the restaurant and he's like, okay, I'll give this girl a chance. I'm not going to tell her that I wrote her the letter. I'm going to pretend that it's just me. I'm here. And then she treated him like trash, and he was genuinely heartbroken, and so he just left. In this movie, it's totally different where, he's destroying her business, and she's like, fuck you. And we're like, yeah, fuck you. Stop destroying this woman's business, you fucking evil bastard. And then he gets up and leaves, and they try to play it like the old movie. And it's like, that doesn't work. And then at the end, too, Tom Hanks, I couldn't believe some of the awful lines of dialogue in this movie. Tom Hanks at the end of this movie, or near the end, he's like, I know that we're friends, but if I wasn't the bookshop owner, if I wasn't the guy who put you out of business, just what if? Like, couldn't we be together? And then he's like, he says, can't you just forgive me for this one little thing? Like, putting this woman out of business is one little thing. Like, God, what a horrible person this character is, this Joe Fox. What a piece of trash. And so that's his character. He does not go through an arc at all. His arc is just realizing that Parker Posey isn't attractive enough for him as Meg Ryan, which, that's pretty bizarre. His character must be part blind in this movie. And so then he wants to get with Meg Ryan instead. That's his character arc. And then Meg Ryan's character arc is realizing she wants to break up with Greg Kinnear, even though he wrote an article for her bookstore and helped her business. And then, even though her business gets destroyed, it's all about the love that she got along the way. You know, that's what the ending was like, guys. It was seriously like, yeah, your whole business got destroyed. This historic bookstore got destroyed, taken over by a rich piece of shit, Tom Hanks and Dabney Coleman. But it's all about the guy that you met along the way. It's all about Tom Hanks and how, you know, oh, you should be with him, yay. Like, what a piece of shit. Ugh. And also, there was some bizarre, like, running joke in this movie about The Godfather. Now, this is another very dated thing, because I think that for years and years, like, there's just movies that, like, people reference because they're just held up as, like, the standard for, like, good movies, like Psycho, The Godfather, Citizen Kane, Star Wars. Like, these are movies that, you know, not many people dislike. And so men reference The Godfather a lot. They don't reference it all the time like they do in this movie, which was very weird. But they do reference it, and, you know, because it's a great movie. I've seen it 4 times. I don't reference it at all, but, you know, I don't see anything wrong with that. And Meg Ryan just makes fun of that, but then, and it's funny too, because, you know, obviously it's the writer making fun of that, and it's the writer making fun of how, why do men like The Godfather so much? But the writer of this movie, she's got an obsession with Pride and Prejudice. Like, and they don't really make fun of that at all. Like, they kind of just go like, haha, you know, Pride and Prejudice, you know, women love that. And that's another thing, too. Remember in that piece of shit Barbie, when they talked about Pride and Prejudice? It's like, well, hey, Meg Ryan, what is it with women liking Pride and Prejudice so much? Like, there you go. Suck on that. Because you know what? You know what I'm going to say? Pride and Prejudice is trash. Wuthering Heights is the story that I think that women should be obsessed with, in my opinion. Wuthering Heights is so much better, and I really wish that more people would read it, because I really prefer Wuthering Heights. In general, I feel like Wuthering Heights is like the best romance book ever, especially because the main character, he's a character that you like. The characters in this movie and You've Got Mail, you don't like these characters at all. You know, you don't like Meg Ryan. You don't like Tom Hanks. They're stupid. They're stupid people. They're unlikable. They're dull. I mean, let's get into Meg Ryan, too. Because I made fun of Tom Hanks a lot in this video. Let's make fun of Meg Ryan. Now, Meg Ryan in this movie, she has one of the ugliest wardrobes I've ever seen. And how old was she, too? Let's see. I'm going to click on her. She looks pretty good in her picture on Letterboxd now, but I mean, in this movie, she looked terrible. When was she born? It's not telling me her fucking birthday. Why not? Why won't you tell me Meg Ryan's birthday? So I'm not saying that she hasn't ever been attractive, but I mean, in this movie, she looks awful. I mean, she just looks atrocious. Let's see. 1961. So Let's do a little math here. Let's see. She was 37. Wow. uh, I would never have known that, honestly. Like, to be honest, in this movie, and You've Got Mail, to me, she looked like she was in her 50s because the wardrobe that she had, it's very reminiscent of, like, the types of clothes that my mom would wear when I was a little kid. So, like, it's just really ugly clothes, like, really just the worst wardrobe I've ever seen for a female character in the 90s, I think. Like, just terrible, terrible wardrobe. Like, there's this one, like, really ugly sweater outfit in the movie where it's like a white shirt with a sweater on top of it, and it's just so ugly. It's awful to look at. And then her hair is like, ugh, gross. Like, I don't know what that was. Hillary Clinton called. She wants her hair back. Like, God, what a gross haircut. I mean, her haircut makes her look like she's in her 60s. It looks terrible. Awful. Why would a man be attracted to this character? They wouldn't be. So that's the problem. I told you guys, if you don't like the love interest in a romantic comedy, that romantic comedy is not gonna be good. Period. And that this movie is a prime example. And there's a moment at the end, or near the end, that's very, very specifically like a moment where you could demonstrate to the audience that this character is not attractive, not interesting for in terms of being a love interest. Because there's this part where she's walking away from Tom Hanks, and she walks like so awkwardly, and her ass is like the worst ass that I've seen in the history of cinema, and then she looks back at Tom Hanks, and it's really awkward and weird the way that she's walking, and it is just the weirdest walk away I've ever seen. Like, women usually in movies, when they do the walk away thing, usually it's a very attractive moment for those characters. But for Meg Ryan's character in this movie, it is like watching a clown walk away from Tom Hanks. And it was one of the worst, it's probably the worst walk away I've ever seen. And finally, it gets to the end, and Tom Hanks brings his dog to meet up with Meg Ryan. And I felt bad for the dog because I really liked the dog in this movie. And from the poster, I was expecting for the dog to be like a central character in the movie. And I think that they just did that, those dirty bastards. They just did that because everyone's seen Turner and Hooch. And everyone thinks about Tom Hanks and Turner and Hooch. And it's like, yeah, Turner and Hooch is a good movie, though. Like, that's what I have to say. Turner and Hooch is a great comedy. It's not like this movie. So he meets her at the end, and there was that whole conflict, remember, where I said that he's like, well, can't you just forgive me for this one little thing? And she's like, no, F you, no. Well, at the end, she finds out that he's the email writer, and she's like elated, and she practically has an orgasm while she's standing there watching him walk towards her. And then he comes up to her, and guys, this might be the worst line in movie history. It's like, by the end of this movie, I was crying because I was just so, like, fed up with this bad movie. I was crying tears of pain. I'm not even kidding with you guys. I was crying. And I'm starting to cry right now because it's so bad. It's so, so bad. This is the Barbie of the 90s. Except at least it's not misandrist. He comes up to her, and she says, I wanted it to be you. Ugh! Like, what the hell? Why would she want it to be him? What a fucking weirdo. And that's exactly what I said at the end of this movie. What a fucking weirdo. You wanted it to be the guy who destroyed your business. What the hell? What kind of lame shit is that? And, you know, and the shop around the corner, he never destroys her business. He never does anything to, like, fuck her up in terms of business. You know, he does play mind games with her, and he does manipulate her a little bit at certain points, but he does not destroy her business or anything to that nature. Tom Hanks in this movie, there's no fucking way that he deserved this happy ending. And so they just totally ruined the story because that character didn't deserve the happy ending at the end. I guess being with Meg Ryan really isn't a happy ending, in my opinion, but, you know, for him it was. And also, too, it's like, why would she want it to be him? How weird and screwy is that? I mean, just imagine if you had like a rape revenge movie where, you know, let's do that too. Let's cast the rape revenge movie. Let's say never mind. I don't want to cast it because I don't want to sound weird. But just let's say that you made the 2023 Shop Around the Corner adaptation. And it's all about a girl who gets raped. And then she also is having... Let's say that she is also pen pals with a very special friend. And she's pen pals with him, and the whole movie, it's about her recovery from the rape. And she's like going to support groups. And she's like, and she's got to have, like, physical therapy because when he raped her, he like, broke her leg and shit, and he cut off her leg because she started to run away. And her family comes to visit her because, like, she's in so much pain from the rape. And then at the end of the movie, this guy comes up to her and he says, this guy comes up to her and he says, "Hey, I'm the one that raped you." And also, I was also the letter writer to you. We've been pen pals for a year. And she says, "I wanted it to be you." Do you guys see what I mean by how fucked up that is? Like, what the hell is that? That's not good. That would not be a good movie. And I'm not saying that, you know, destroying someone's business is equivalent to rape, but it's pretty bad, you know, like, it's pretty up there, you know, like, what's going to happen to all those employees? Like that one girl, she said she's going to have to move because she won't be able to afford her rent because the rent is too damn high. So what a fucking weirdo Meg Ryan is at the end of this movie. I wanted it to be you. Unbelievable. I don't know what. And the weirdest thing too is the fact that a woman wrote this movie. Like, you'd think, if anything, if a woman wrote this movie, that, like, the man would have a change of heart, that he would help her, that, you know, he would not destroy her business and put her out of business. Like, no. In this movie, he puts her out of business real good. You know, that's what I'm saying, that, like, it's like a role play. It's like some sort of, like, a fantasy, like a sexy fantasy of, like, ooh, yeah, he destroyed my business. Ooh, that gets me real messy. You know, like, and also, the person who made this movie, you know, Nora Ephron, I haven't seen very many of her movies, but she made Julie and Julia. That was a cutesy, stupid movie. And she made the Bewitched remake. So this is the third of her movies that just sucks you-know-what. And I'm just curious, like, did she make any good movies? Because I don't even want to watch the other ones based on these three trash movies. I mean, wow. It's sad that she passed away as well. I mean, it looks like she died in 2012, so she'll never be able to hear me joking about the potential rape revenge reboot of You've Got Mail. Instead of You've Got Mail, the title will be You've Gotten Raped. Directed by James Gunn. Written by Roman Polanski. Starring, I don't know, who should star in the rape revenge movie? Oh God. You know what would be really creepy? Kevin Spacey. You got Kevin Spacey. You got, let's see. Oh, you could have Florence Pugh. And at the end of the movie, you got Kevin Spacey. He goes right up to Florence Pugh. And he says, "Hello, Florence. I am the one that raped you. And I also wrote you the letters." And she can say, "I wanted it to be you." I mean, that is as queer as, like, that line that Safi said, that Safi remembered with that other romantic comedy, like, love means never having to say you're sorry. Like, that line is a good line because, like, yeah, that's kind of, that's nice, that's kind of sweet. This line is shit. You wanted it to be the guy who ruined your business. I mean, how mentally ill is that? That would be like if I had a secret pen pal and then I met up with her and it turned out to be like, I don't know, because all the feminazis I can think of are all married, funnily enough. But that's what it would be like. So in terms of food, I thought of something like the whole time in the middle of watching this movie. I just got this rating, and it stuck with me. It just fits this movie so perfectly. I would give this movie... Sorry, guys. Tom Hanks represents a burned grilled cheese. And, you know, there's nothing worse than, like, a burned grilled cheese. Because how do you burn a grilled cheese? Like, how do you become so absent-minded that you just let the grilled cheese burn? I mean, that is just stupidity on another level. And then Meg Ryan represents organic tomato soup. Now, tomato soup, I'm telling you guys right now, Campbell's tomato soup is the bomb. And I don't care, like, whatever, like, it's not that good for you. Like, when I have blood pressure problems in the spring, Campbell's tomato soup, like, genuinely helped. Like, I would feel really sick, and then I would eat the tomato soup with the grilled cheese, and I would feel really, really good because of the tomato and the tomato soup. Because tomatoes actually reduce your blood pressure. Tomato soup was like one of the few foods that, like, I actually enjoyed. And the organic tomato soup, a lot of the brands, like the specific brand that we got for a while, they have lots of sugar in them. And the particular brand that we would get, it had like 40 grams of sugar in the can. And that is like the equivalent of a soda, of half of a soda. Like, half a Coca-Cola. That's the amount of sugar that's in this little can of soup. But they call it organic. So it's got to be healthy, right? So that's what I would give this movie. A burn grilled cheese with organic tomato soup. And I know that there's people who like this movie. That's fine, but I'm telling you, personally, this movie is a big reason why men stopped liking romantic comedies. This is the reason why nowadays, like, when you think of romantic comedy, you don't think a genre that's for everyone. You just think this is a genre for women. And it's all because of movies like this. And also, I hate this movie for being associated with my birthday. Because, like, out of all the movies to be my birthday movie, this was the one that had to be the birthday movie. Like, that's terrible. And I'll never forgive, like, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan for making this movie my birthday movie. Like, that's just terrible, guys. Like, just imagine that, too. Like, even if you like this movie, just imagine if your birthday movie was a movie that you hated and despised. And just imagine, too, if that's not bad enough, just imagine if your birthday movie is a remake. Mic drop, boom. So please like this video, comment, and tell me what you think of You've Got Mail. Would you like to see the You've Gotten Raped remake of this? I kind of would like to make that now. Like, I think that would be really hilarious and fun. and then, and then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews like this. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon for the Friday the 13th remake. Bye. Bye.